So I have my prepared remarks and I will read them. But before I do, I want to tell a story that I didn't have until this morning. So I'm going to talk about this. I now work in a 5th grade classroom. And this morning, my 5th graders wanted to know why I wasn't going to be at school for the second half of the day. And so I told them, I'm going to this benefit. And they said, what's a benefit? And we spent a while on that. But after that, they wanted to know what SMARTS was. And so I turned to them and I said, well, as some of you may know, I have ADHD. And the first reaction was, what? Which was really great because only recently would that be a surprise to anyone in my life. But then the second wave was a bunch of kids stood up. They didn't sit down, no, they stood up, of course they stood up, and they pointed themselves and they said, me too! And I think it's so great that I get to work and live in a place where kids are proud to say that. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I think everyone who participated in the SMARTS program got something out of it. But for me, it totally changed the path of my life. SMARTS pushed me into education. I don't think I'd be teaching today if it hadn't been for the 2 years I spent with SMARTS. Before SMARTS, I did some stuff with education. I volunteered at the Museum of Science, like half a block that way, my junior year of high school, but I never really worked with kids. I didn't really know what it was like. I didn't know what it was all about. SMARTS was my first chance to really work and learn from a young person. And I think one of the hardest things about starting teaching is having someone there giving you the right stuff to teach. Because especially as a high schooler, it's hard to come up with your own curriculum. And Lynn and the SMARTS team at that point just had built the most incredible curriculum. And I think that's part of what pushed me into where I am today. Because when you're teaching a good curriculum, you don't just learn what you're teaching, you learn to love it. So SMARTS, especially when I was doing it, I don't know what it looks like today, was a really interesting mix between weekly mentoring sessions and these monthly meetups where we get to talk face-to-face with our mentees and work with them. And in our weekly mentoring sessions, I think those had very little to do with executive function, if I'm being honest. They had a lot to do with me learning everything about the original 151 Pokemon, all of their moves, and everything about them. And at the time, I wasn't sure why that was valuable. That when I talked to Zach every week, he would tell me about his new Pokemon cards and his new Pokemon, and then we'd talk about that for 30 minutes, and at the end he would say, math class was really hard this week. And I'd say, why was math class hard? And then after talking about Pokemon for 30 minutes, we'd finally get into what was really going on in his life. And I think that was as a teacher, that's the most valuable lesson you can learn, that sometimes kids aren't always ready to learn. They aren't always ready to talk about what's hard in their life. But if you build that relationship, they'll be ready. I think one of the greatest things SMARTS did for me was helping me confront my own experience being a kid with ADD. Being a kid with ADD is incredibly hard. The classic ADD scene is a kid staring out the window, only to be called on by the teacher and come back to the world with a start. This is usually presented as kind of a comedic scene, the kid's spacing out, the teacher says, Chace! They turn, they look. But it's usually not. It's not fun for the kid. It's kind of horrifying, actually. Because here you are in a classroom and everyone's paying attention, and suddenly you come to yourself with a start and you realize you haven't been paying attention. You don't know what's going on, and sometimes everyone's looking at you. I see this happen in my classroom every day. And I think sometimes we carry that hurt with us, that experience of being, as Billy was talking about, that kid who's in his cubicle or who's really struggling, and that being able to come to terms with that by working with another kid who's still in that place of struggle was for me incredibly profound. I think another thing that SMARTS did, I feel like I'm starting to list here, is it helped me become a better learner. When I was giving these strategies about executive function and how I thought and how I organized my tasks to Zach, I wasn't just telling him to them. I was actually learning them myself. I mean, I don't know how many of you have seen the SMARTS website or looked at these lessons, but this is incredibly detailed, mature, an analytic approach to looking at how your mind works. It's simple, but as someone who's taken neurobiology courses, it's incredibly complex. And I think having that insight into how my mind worked and being able to teach it to a young person changed how I approach work for the rest of my life. To conclude, I think with any volunteer program, the expectation is that you give a lot. You give a lot, and you give, and that's what it's all about. But I think for me, SMARTS was more about what I gained. The partnership I had with Zach, it taught me so much about myself and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to affect the lives of young people. And because of that,